Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the House Appropriations Committee. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for your patience. And as we get started here, we're going to go ahead and hear House Bill 898, Delegate Acevedo, Maryland People Fund Establishment. Delegate Acevedo.
Me too, Mr. Chair. Me too. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Appropriations Committee. I will be brief. I know we have certainly a long hearing today. This bill, House Bill 898, is a reintroduction. It essentially establishes a social wealth fund that would then be used to essentially pay direct cash assistance to folks most need in our state. There's been ample data and studies provided around providing direct cash assistance, particularly to individuals, low-income individuals. They tend to then spend that money back into their communities, but also to spend it on basic needs. We've seen from the pandemic just the impact that direct cash assistance has had on a number of families and individuals. And with the establishment of the Maryland People's Fund, which again is a social wealth fund, we'll be able to then pay out those dividends, those direct cash assistance to folks most in need in our state. We have worked with a number of advocacy groups who are in support of direct cash assistance to essentially submit an amendment to House Bill 898, which members of this committee should have as part of the bill packet. But we are certainly in support of that amendment that we believe would not just strengthen the bill overall, but ensure that the intended individuals, the intended folks for this direct cash assistance, that it would be meeting and essentially providing those folks most in need. Again, House Bill 898 is the establishment of a social wealth fund, which is the beginning of the direct cash assistance. And so with that, I would ask for a favorable report, given one, what we've seen during the pandemic and the kind of impact that stimulus checks or direct cash assistance had on many Americans, including those in our state, but also an opportunity for us to address child poverty and poverty more generally in our state by supporting policies that are evidence-based and that a number of folks in this community and working on this issue support. So with that, thank you and ask for a favorable report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Delegate Acevedo. Any questions from the committee for the bill sponsor? That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 898. Committee will now move on to House Bill 1163. Chairwoman Atterbury, State Department of Education, Division of Rehabilitation Services Funding.
Thank you. May I bring up my one witness?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. I think this is my first time ever presenting a bill on appropriations in 10 years. So we clap for something like that. So thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. I'm Delegate Vanessa Atterbury here to ask for your favorable report for House Bill 1163. State Department Division of Rehabilitation Services Funding. In the 2022 legislative session, House Bill 660 commissioned to study the Division of Rehabilitation Services, or DORS, as you all are familiar with, was passed to establish a commission to study the Division of Rehabilitation Services. This bill follows up on one of the commission's main recommendations in that final report, that the Maryland General Assembly should statutorily ensure that the state adequately provides general funds for DORS services to meet the 21.3% federal funding match requirement. Without a committed appropriation for DORS funding, Maryland would be leaving millions of dollars on the table that would go towards additional DORS counselors and staff and enhance timeliness and quality of critical employment services. The result of the funding would be to ensure federal funding for employment services in Maryland, improve delivery and quality of services, greatly reduce the wait list to receive rehabilitation services, and place individuals with disabilities into gainful employment to function more independently. And with that, I would ask for your favorable report, and I will turn it over to Ms. London.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Rachel London, the Executive Director of the Maryland Developmental Disabilities Council. We are a statewide public policy organization that creates change to make it possible for people with developmental disabilities to live the lives they want with the support they need. And DOORS is one agency that makes that happen. I was also a member of the DOORS Commission that Chair Atterbury just mentioned, and we did in fact include this as one of our highest recommendations to make sure that Maryland continues to receive the funding from the federal government to provide support for people with disabilities to go to work, to stay at a job, and prepare for the world of work. Chair Atterbury also mentioned the wait list. There's currently just under 2,000 people waiting for these services. So the time is now to make sure that Maryland funds the required state match so that we continue to receive the millions of dollars from the federal government. That funding does help expand training and services in community-based settings. It also increases the accountability of DOORS programs and services. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. London. Are there any questions for Chairwoman Atterbury or Ms. London on this bill from the committee? Great. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Ms. London. And we also have another testimony from Sharon Manecki, National Federation of the Blind Maryland.
I don't see her in here.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 1163. The committee will now move on to House Bill 1212, presented by Delegate Jazz Lewis, State Retirement and Pension System Director of Diversity. Okay. Committee will now move on to House Bill 1200, Delegate Rose, Primary and Secondary Education Full-Time Equivalent Enrollment Count, Alterations Truancy Reduction Act of 2024.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Appropriations Committee. I appreciate the opportunity today to present House Bill 1200. I've brought this bill before. It's a very basic bill, but I think could have some very good fiscal impact for the state of Maryland. It will alter the definition of the full-time enrollment that is used to calculate state education aid and local government education funding requirements. And basically it goes from counting students one time per year in September to a total of 4 times. The reason why, and you have my written testimony, the reason why I bring this bill again is because twofold. Number one, as we have heard this year several times, we are looking for money to fund many, many things, including the blueprint. And if we are more accurately calculating the number of students that are actually in school, we could certainly find some savings. And I know that that's something that everybody in this committee talks about probably every day, more than you ever wanted to before. In addition, the second part of it is I am concerned with chronic truancy and the fact that if we know sooner where children are, why they aren't in school, we could intervene sooner with supports and help to families if there is something going on that they just really need somebody to come along and let them know what programs are available and how they can be helped. And I heard that brought up several times as we've discussed all year, the juvenile justice reforms. And so I think dovetailing between the fiscal impact along with really providing families assistance and help if they need it makes this a common sense bill to consider. And I thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions. And I ask for a favorable report.
Great. Thank you very much, Delegate Rose. Are there any questions for Delegate Rose? Delegate Metzger.
Thank you, I'll speak back. Thank you, Delegate Rose, for bringing this bill. And the word truancy stuck in my head and popped up a memory when I was a kid. not that they
had these officers, but there used to be truancy officers that do they still have them? I don't even know.
Not to my knowledge. I do know that
I know
schools,
my neighbor used to get, the truancy officers used to come all the time.
I'm sure you weren't truant all the time.
No.
I don't know that there's officers. I do know that the schools do try to make a good faith effort of, reaching out. But, we have a lot of kids in school. We have a lot of schools, a lot of personnel. And I just worry that if we're not counting more often, that there could be children and families that are slipping through the cracks. And we know that we have a myriad of services and assistance that we can provide, but we first need to know why they're not in school. There's evidence, and I heard that in Ways and Means, along with you were there for many years. If we don't, especially with the younger students, if we don't intervene early enough, if you're not reading by, I believe it's the 3rd grade level, you really are going to struggle to be successful in your school career and in your career in general. So I just think that this is a very simple, common sense thing to do to address a couple of major issues. One being our fiscal outlook, and two, the families and the children.
Do they have a 30-day average or 10-day average of how many is out of school?
I can get those numbers for you. And in doing my research, there were a couple of articles that reference that, and I'm happy to get that to you offline.
Thank you.
Sure.
You. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, that concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 1200.
Thank you.
Committee will now move on to House Bill 921, Washington County Delegation, Washington County Board of License Commissioners and Board of Community College Trustees membership.
Thank you, Chairman Chang and honorable members of the Appropriations Committee. I'm Delegate Weibel, and on behalf of the Washington County Delegation, I am pleased to present House Bill 921, which alters the composition of the Board of License Commissioners and the Board of Community College Trustees for Washington County only. For the Board of License Commissioners, the bill would delete language of not more than 2 members of the board may belong to the same political party, and replace it with language that 2 members of the board shall belong to the political party that received the highest aggregated number of votes in the preceding election of the Board of County Commissioners, and 1 member of the board shall belong to the political party that received the second highest aggregated number of votes in the preceding election of the Board of County Commissioners. The bill also does the same with our community college board, but since it's 7 members, it simply replaces the numbers with 4 members and 3 members. The legislation is patterned after legislation that was passed in Allegheny County a few years ago, and it assures that board memberships are not comprised of one-party rule. It is a local bill, and I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 921. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Delegate Weibel. Are there any questions for Delegate Weibel on this bill? Seeing none, that concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 921. The committee will now move on to House Bill 1212. Delegate Jazz Lewis, State Retirement Pension Systems Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Governance Program.
Good afternoon, colleagues. For the record, Delegate Jazz Lewis here to testify on behalf of House Bill 1212. At the heart of House Bill 1212 is the establishment of a Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion within the state retirement and pension system. This role is crucial in acknowledging the undeniable value that our diverse workforce brings to the realm of asset management. The 2022 Diversity and Asset Management Report underscores the substantial evidence that diverse asset managers often deliver equal or superior investment returns compared to their less diverse counterparts. Furthermore, the report highlights the critical importance of broadening access to the asset management industry for underrepresented groups, noting the significant benefits of diverse perspectives in enhancing decision-making and fostering innovative solutions. Maryland, as the 4th most diverse state in the nation, has both the opportunity and the responsibility to be a trailblazer in this area. By establishing a dedicated professional to advocate for and implement strategies aimed at increasing diversity within our asset management practices, we are not just paying lip service to the ideals of equity and inclusion. We are taking concrete steps to realize them. This legislation will create vital pathways for individuals from historically marginalized communities to enter and excel in the high finance sector. thereby enriching the industry with a wealth of diverse talents and perspective. Additionally, House Bill 1212 seeks to codify the role of the Director of the Governance Program within the Investment Division, ensuring this pivotal position maintains a direct line of communication within the State Retirement Systems Board. This measure is essential for safeguarding the independence and efficacy of the director, allowing them to champion our goals of diversity among asset managers without fear of repercussion. Such structural protections are commonly employed across government entities to ensure that advocates for diversity and small business engagement can operate freely and effectively. It is a recognition that real change often requires challenging conversations and bold advocacy, which should be encouraged rather than inhibited. In marrying these two themes into the fabric of House Bill 1212, we are championing a future where diversity, asset management, and financial stewardship is not an afterthought, but a foundational principle. This legislation signals to every Marylander, regardless of their background, that there is a place for them at the table of high finance and that their unique perspectives are invaluable assets to our state's prosperity. For these reasons, I urge a favorable report on House Bill 1212. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much, Delegate Lewis. Are there any questions for the bill sponsor on this bill? Seeing none, that concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 1212. The committee will now move on to House Bill 541. Is Delegate Henson here? We're going to go ahead and move to House Bill 897, Baltimore City Delegation, Baltimore Convention and Tourism Redevelopment and Operating Authority Task Force.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and my distinguished colleagues on the House Appropriations Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Stephanie Smith. I'm here to present House Bill 897 on behalf of the Baltimore City Delegation. This is a bill that's very similar to a bill that some of you may have remembered passing some years ago related to the Baltimore Symphony. This is an important asset, not only to the city, but to the region. But we're trying to figure out how we can have a more sustainable economic path forward, because this is a building that's over 45 years old. It has been the home to many amazing events over the years. But due to the fact that the last major renovation was in 1996, it is not able to keep pace with some of the events that have grown and would like to stay, but now have to go somewhere else because of the outdated facilities. We know that having a partnership between the city and the state is vital to the future of the Baltimore Convention Center. And so similar to what we did with the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, where we brought together all the needed stakeholders for a very, I wouldn't say intense, but a heavily prescribed effort resulting in a report about how to navigate the future. We would like to see the same result here for the Baltimore Convention Center. I do want to mention that this bill was amended in delegation to add a couple of key participants, including the GBC, Greater Baltimore Committee, the Maryland Transit Administration, and a representative from the Department of Commerce's Tourism Advisory Board. So those were the amendments, in the delegation that we'd be bringing to this body today. So I would love to extend more details to the rest of the panel, but I do hope to get careful consideration and hopefully successful support for House Bill 897. Thank you.
For the Baltimore City Delegation, we're bringing this bill. If each witness could provide 2-minute testimonies, be great. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Matt Campbell. I'm the Executive Director for the Baltimore Convention Center. With the limited time we have this afternoon for testimony, I wanted to take the opportunity to encourage you to read my written testimony should you want some background on how the BCC operates currently and some of the challenges that we're faced with, to allow me to speak more directly on the reasons for this task force that we're requesting today. It goes without saying the Baltimore Convention Center is a catalyst for economic activity throughout the city and state. If you ask stakeholders from hotels, restaurants, attractions, and retail, the impact of citywide conventions is clear. The sales tax received by the state and the hotel and income taxes received by the city allow government to spread the financial benefits of our work to every corner of Maryland, though many never realize that. Much like Shel Silverstein's Giving Tree, however, the Convention Center has given its all for the benefit of others over the last 45 years and has been left as a shell of its former self. It can no longer provide the expected 4-to-1 return on investment as we constantly fight to keep catastrophic system failures from impacting business, not to mention lead generation dramatically shrinking due to old, uncompetitive facilities. We must think differently if we are to compete. This legislation assembles experts in conventions, transportation, tourism, finance, urban development, along with voices from the local business and residential communities, charging them with digging deep into the data and return to this body in December with thoughtful, collaborative, and strategic recommendations on how the BCC can play a vital role in Baltimore's renaissance and Maryland's continued prosperity. This legislation requires all of us to make that time and makes it clear that it is a priority of the state and the city to get it right and to get it right now. This building cannot wait any longer. We're on borrowed time. I'm happy to ask any questions you may have this afternoon, and implore you to vote favorably on 897. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mia Blum. I'm the Senior Director of Government and Community Affairs for Visit Baltimore. To successfully sell a destination, you need to have a well-resourced convention center facility, updated and current hotel properties, and that's all needed to compete with cities that attract citywide conventions and other events. Our comp set is increasing in both quantity and quality assets by the day. There isn't a week that goes by that doesn't have a press release or a news article about modernization, renovation, or new assets in any city around the country. The Visit Baltimore sales team has increasing challenges in booking business, and leads are shrinking due to the current inventory that we have. That all requires us to have increased incentives to have business come to our location. Failure to modernize the convention center would be a forfeiture of economic prosperity that's reinvigorated towards the economy we create. From 2013 to 2022, we've lost business of close to 426,000 possible attendees, equating to a loss of over 700,000 room nights and 14 million in local tax revenue. The cost of inaction is just not the loss of opportunity, it's a tangible loss of substantial economic benefit year after year. This task force will allow us to have a strategic process and a plan that will be proposed by key stakeholders in the tourism industry with a finite timeline. We ask you to vote for approval on this bill.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Lisa Harris-Jones. I'm here on behalf of Visit Baltimore. Because everyone has kind of said everything that I would share, I'm just here to answer questions. On behalf of Visit Baltimore, we work very closely with the mayor's office to draft this legislation. So I'm here to answer any questions and ask for a favorable report.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of the committee for this panel? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Madam Chair, to the delegation with the mayor here, Brandon Scott. When he wants to come up here and say a few words about this bill, that'd be great. The Mayor, Brandon Scott, and then also if we have Nashuna Kess with the Maryland NAACP, Nina Themelis. They are here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I will not belabor the point. I am Mayor Brandon Scott here in support of this piece of legislation. As you heard, we know that our convention center is long overdue. We are losing conventions and money for one main reason: the condition of our convention center. This task force will allow us to look at best practices and things that have happened with convention centers around the country, and for us to put our heads together, the best minds that we have here in the city and the state, to make sure that we are building a new convention center that will help Baltimore continue to punch not just at but above our weight class when it comes to conventions and tourism. We just had another excellent week in Baltimore with the CIAA tournament. We want to continue to host things like that, but we need to have a high quality, top of the line convention center in order to do that. And with that, I urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Nashuna Kess. I am the Executive Director of the Maryland NAACP. I stand before you as one of the organizations that have been affected by the possible, or rather the renovations, right, for the convention center. Our national body is looking at the convention center for the conference coming up in a couple of years. And one of the most critical feedback that we received from our national body is that the convention center is just not updated. The hotels are not updated. There are many other cities that are also vying for the same time frame that we're vying for, and that is one of the most critical feedbacks that we're receiving. We're not the only organization that has been affected or would love to see a conference in Baltimore City, but it's simply the renovations, some of the just updates that could occur with the convention center that would be super helpful for our national body and other organizations that would like to come to Baltimore, frequent Baltimore, spend their money in Baltimore. And that's the most important. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Kess. Are there any questions from members of the committee for Mayor Brandon Scott or Ms. Kess? Okay, great. Thank you very much. And we have one more witness with favorable amendments is Lewis Fields with BAATC. Lewis Fields. Okay. And then just checking Nina Themelis. Okay, great. Thank you very much. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 897. The committee will now move on to House Bill 1334 presented by Delegate Smith, Housing and Community Development, continuing the core partnership fund extension. Delegate Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, thank you to my distinguished colleagues on the House Appropriations Committee. For the record, Delegate Stephanie Smith here to present House Bill 1334. In 2016, former Governor Hogan and former Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake actually worked together on something that we in Baltimore are really happy about, which is Project Core. And Project Core was designed to have strategic demolition of blighted properties throughout the city. And as many of you who have visited Baltimore know, we've often had a struggle in getting our arms around vacant and blighted properties. And we've made a lot of headway in no small part due to the funding through Project Core. And that was generously supported by this legislative body. This money through Project Core is actually slated to sunset next year. So what this bill does would just remove the sunset, because at the time that Secretary Day under this administration and the Department of Housing and Community Development have made a priority of attacking housing vacancy and blight, we feel it's necessary that we continue this program. There has been some increased funding in it, but if it were to lapse in a year, it would really stymie the headway that many, not only residents, but visitors to Baltimore City would like to see. So we are just asking for a favorable report on House Bill 1334 to keep the good work of Project Core going. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good afternoon again. I am here in staunch and full support of House Bill 1334 to ensure that a program, a Project Core that has been critical to the efforts of Baltimore City to reduce vacant properties in Baltimore. There is a movement and a renaissance building in the city of Baltimore across every single neighborhood. But we know that this renaissance would not have been possible without the support of Project Core, which since 2016 has helped eliminate more than 5,000 blighted properties in Baltimore City. As we stand here today, Baltimore City has its lowest amount of vacant properties in 20 years, and we know we can and will take that even further. Just this past December, I, alongside our partners at Build and the Greater Baltimore Committee, GBC, announced a $3 billion plan to end vacancy in Baltimore over the next 15 years. Project Core is a core component of that plan, working together city and state to leverage private dollars to help us eliminate a problem that Baltimore City has faced for too long. The continuation of Project Core, a program that has worked so hard, is a no-brainer and will be critical for us to be able to accomplish that goal. And with that, I urge a favorable report.
Good afternoon. I'm Leslie McMillan, a lay co-chair of BUILD, Baltimoreans United in Leadership Development. And we urge a favorable report for House Bill 1334 because it extends Project Core, and it solidifies an annual appropriation of at least $50 million. As our mayor has said, we have been facing a crisis of vacant and abandoned homes. We still have over 13,000 vacant and abandoned buildings. We still have 21,000 vacant lots and tens of thousands of homes that are at risk due to the vacancy. So it's not a new crisis. We know it's been rooted in a long history of destructive and racially discriminatory housing policies. We have an opportunity now by partnering with the city and the Greater Baltimore Committee on a vetted plan to rebuild our neighborhoods. In East Baltimore, we have transformed over 450 homes, vacant buildings into homes, and we have increased the population in those neighborhoods, which means increased tax dollars. We're proud of our work. Build is committed to continue that work. We have been in East Baltimore, we have moved over to West Baltimore and are organizing in other neighborhoods, again, to end the crises of vacant and abandoned homes. We do that with consistent organizing and with Project CORE having consistent strategic investment, using our values, not displacing not one Baltimore resident, and having mixed income communities with affordable housing. We would also be working with, when we say organizing, true community leadership to help vet this. We've been able to change, we've been able to fix that broken housing in those 4 Baltimore neighborhoods in East Baltimore. And people, like I said, are increasing and coming to those neighborhoods. What I would like to bring to your attention is you have our written testimony, the chart that says an investment in Baltimore and rebuilding our neighborhoods where people come to Baltimore will not only increase our tax money, but it will also benefit Maryland tax money. We truly urge a favorable report on House Bill 1334. We truly need that strategic, consistent investment to rebuild our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for your testimony. We have a question from Delegate Eagles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
She's pushing.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Mayor, for bringing this bill. You know, in these challenging budget times for us, it's so important to ensure that the investments we make are multiplied and leveraged through other sources. I'm wondering if you can give us a little context on how, extending Project CORE and this investment from the state will allow us to leverage private dollars, philanthropic dollars, as we look to stack up that capital in order to accomplish the very bold and exciting plan that you laid out to get rid of vacant properties, Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you for that, Delegate, and thank you for representing the 46 in Baltimore City very well. It's not just about just the private dollars, right? We'll start with the public. The 50 million that you talked about for at the state level that is in Project CORE in the governor's budget will help and allow and go along with the 300 million that we are putting up in city government. We're going to be rolling out the first tranche of TIF financing that's going to be done for vacant properties this summer with our partners. And we know that the private investment is there. We've seen that in East Baltimore with Rebuild Metro. We see that in neighborhoods all across the city where renovations are happening. But this has never been an issue of whether folks are doing the work or whether the plan or the strategy works. This is simply always been whether we have the capital to take it to scale. This is us scaling something that has been working in neighborhoods and allowing us to have that deep impact. Because if we continue to do it the way that we have, it would take us 300 years for us to deal with vacancy in Baltimore. This allows us to do that within 15 years.
And if I can mention, this is a critical tool, but it's part of a suite of tools that we need. So you may be familiar, particularly in your district, about the CHOP tax credit. The city has skin in the game in that by, lowering people's tax obligations due to, maintaining to certain historical specifications. So when you see Project CORE, you see the CHOP tax credit, you see all of these things working together. That's why we're down to a 20-year low and vacant and blighted property, but we still have a long way to go.
Got it. I would just say, as somebody who represents neighborhoods around the harbor, you so often hear about creative financing structures used to incentivize investment in those neighborhoods. It's so exciting to hear about these structures and creative ways used to incentivize investment in so many other neighborhoods around the city. So thanks so much for the bill, and I look forward to working with you on it.
Thank you.
So my first question is, what makes Project Core different than Bernie and also the Strategic Demolition Fund, which is two separate funding sources? And then my second question is, with Project Core, are we also partnering with nonprofits and actually getting that work done? Is that similar to the other two programs?
No, Project Core partners with the city and nonprofits, a delegate, and this is about strategically looking at this. When you think about the swaths of vacant property, we've been able to, through my administration, have a separate docket in the court for NREM and these things that we need to get these things. And Project Core helps us if we have to go and demolish a whole row of vacant houses, but also if a nonprofit organization that's doing great work like Rebuild Metro and Build, and they need investment to deal with the vacancies that they have there. This, as you heard from my delegate and my chair, my personal delegate, this is about having all the tools in the toolbox to deal with an issue that has existed in this city longer than the delegate and I combined have been alive. We need every single tool. We do have organizations that work very well with Bernie, right? We have organizations that work with the city and the state on Project Core. We need all of this to take this to scale because, again, they've proven it in East Baltimore. It's been proven in West Baltimore in certain places to work. This has been about whether we have the capital stack necessary and the innovative ways of thinking to be able to fully eliminate vacancies in Baltimore, understanding and being very honest, not saying what many folks have said in the past that we're going to end vacancies in Baltimore in a 4-year election cycle, because quite frankly, that's insane. But to have a real path and approach to say that this is how we do it over time with this sustained investment, because it's critical to know that money that the governor is intending to invest into Project Core will again allow us to take down. We're going to be taking out bonds and TIFs and financing. We're going to be using Industrial Development Authority to bond on these vacant houses as we are trying to bank on what we know is a successful plan that we've proven and taken it up.
I guess my question is, with Bernie, can you do the same thing with Bernie? Can you do the same thing with the Strategic Demolition Fund?
I'm going to jump in. So Core is much more focused on strategic demolition. Bernie is regional, so it expands to the counties and jurisdictions around Baltimore, but it also allows for acquisition of property in the city. So slightly different, but they obviously go together because when you can, demo, some of these lots are very small. You can't really bring a lot of amenities to such a small parcel. So when you can start, bringing together more than one piece, you can actually start developing some more interesting concepts. One row home property alone is very difficult to make something new out of. But when you can, strategically demo a lot of decaying properties at once, you can obviously do site assembly in a more impactful way that could lead you to some of the development tools that Bernie would unlock.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from members of the committee for the panel? Seeing none, thank you very much, everyone. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 1334. The committee will now move on to House Bill 1020, Delegate Wallach, Universities at Shady Grove Regional Higher Education Center, designation as Community of Innovation. Delegate Wallach, you can bring your panel up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Appropriations Committee. For the record, I am Delegate Sarah Wallach. For over 20 years, the University at Shady Grove, or as we like to call it, USG, has been providing students with innovative pathways to degree completion. USG offers nearly 80 undergraduate and graduate degree programs in partnership with the University System of Maryland Universities and provides a path for affordable, high-quality higher education. In 2022, USG unveiled USG 2.0, a strategic plan which includes accountability for ensuring students secure meaningful employment, building career pathways, sharpening focus on career readiness, and building a financial model that supports growth, innovation, and collaboration. Innovation at USG means offering classes and programs that are linked directly to meaningful job opportunities, providing students with the support they need to simultaneously balance personal and family responsibilities while completing their academic journeys, and connecting students directly with local and regional employers to ensure they move seamlessly from classrooms to careers. House Bill 1020 will designate the universities at Shady Grove as a community of innovation. This designation will provide USG with the recognition and resources it needs to implement and sustain this transformational work for all current and future students. And so I respectfully request a favorable report on House Bill 1020.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Chairman, and all members of the House Appropriations Committee for providing the opportunity to testify in support of HB 1020, designating the universities of Shady Grove, the state of Maryland's regional higher education community of innovation. We are especially grateful to Delegate Sarah Wallach for sponsoring HB 1020 and also to Senator Nancy King for her sponsorship of SB 864. I'm Ann Kademian, Executive Director of the Universities at Shady Grove, and I'm grateful to have such a distinguished panel testifying today in support of this legislation. I'm also going to recognize all the members of the USG senior leadership team who have joined me today here in Annapolis. USG is one of 3 USM regional higher education centers in Maryland. We serve 3,500 students a year seeking upper-level undergraduate degrees and graduate programs who balance family and workplace responsibilities. Our model provides greater access and affordability for students who would not otherwise have the opportunity to attend traditional four-year institutions. With the designation, we can do so much more. We can ensure students are career ready and bring potential employers into their educational experience. We can achieve debt-free graduation for more students. We can expand the work of the Blueprint by connecting career and college-ready students to priority academic and career pathways. We can be a data and learning resource for the system, for MHEC, and for the state by designing high-impact pathways. And we can drive economic growth in the county and in the state of Maryland through talent development. We are grateful for the support of USM leadership, for the USM Board of Regents who passed a unanimous resolution in support of the designation, and the entire USG Board of Advisors who represent educational and business interests across our state. We look forward to welcoming all of you to our campus and introducing you to the students, faculty, and staff at USG. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and delegates. I'm Dr. Allison Rinn, Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs for the University System of Maryland. I'm here to fully support the Regional Higher Education Center designation of Shady Grove designation as a community of innovation. This is a great opportunity for all of us to learn about what it looks like to start with a focus on workforce and career in our higher education setting. This process that Executive Director Academium has talked about to become a community of innovation has been incredibly collegial and has gone through many steps, many stages, and I'm really impressed by the way it has turned out. This designation fits well with the University System of Maryland's strategic plan, Vision 2030, and reinforces the student-centered nature of USG, with a particular focus on traditionally underrepresented students. On behalf of the USM and the 9 partner institutions who serve our students at Shady Grove, we ask your support of House Bill 1020. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is PJ Hogan. I am not here as a paid lobbyist. I'm retired. I'm here as a member of the USG Board of Advisors. I was one of the founding members of USG 24 years ago. It is a unique, first of its kind type of model institution, whatever you want to call it, in the country. Other systems around the country have looked at it over the years, tried to emulate it. It has really done a phenomenal job producing college graduates that otherwise didn't have the funds to be able to go to college. In case you're sitting there thinking, well, you know, designation, is that unprecedented? No, there's plenty of precedent. I'll give you 3 of them quickly. University of Maryland College Park was designated by this General Assembly to be the state's flagship public research university. That has elevated UMCP College Park to what it is today. This legislature also designated Morgan State University as the state's premier urban research institution. If you look at Morgan State University today, it has accomplished incredible things. I'm old. It used to be UMUC. It's now UMGC. UMGC was designated as the state's premier online institution. So those are just 3 examples of how the state has designated certain institutions based on the criteria, their strengths, and what has enabled them to do. So I thank you for your time and ask you for a favorable report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Jake Weissman, Associate Vice President of Government Relations, Community Affairs at UMBC, here in strong support of House Bill 1020. And thank you to Delegate Wolick for introducing the legislation. Some background, UMBC has just a little over 500 students at USG, which makes ours the second most represented school at USG after University of Maryland College Park. We have 7 undergraduate programs and 6 graduate programs. And I especially want to highlight those graduate programs. We have an MPS in biotech and a unique translational life science technology program, which is a real boom for Montgomery County life science industry that is growing there. It's an incredibly diverse population. The UMBC student population over at USG is just as diverse as it is on our home campus in Catonsville. And as President Shares Ashby would say, the students there are extraordinary. And the USG model gives them a viable option to obtain a bachelor's or master's degree without the cost of room and board. USG and UMBC are focused on student success and career readiness that meets workforce needs and changes folks' economic trajectory. And we see USG as this innovative model and as a favorable report on House Bill 1020. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much to the bill sponsor and all the witnesses who are here. Are there any questions from members of the committee for the bill sponsor or the panel? Great. Thank you very much. Have a great day. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 1020. The committee will now move on to House Bill 541. Delegate Henson, Anne Arundel County Student Loan Assistance Repayment Program for Educators established.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am Delegate Shanika Henson, here to present House Bill 541, Anne Arundel County Student Loan Repayment and Assistance Program for Educators. The program would allow, it's enabling legislation, and it would allow the Anne Arundel County Council to establish a student loan repayment program. This is on par with what's already being done in Howard County and will be an effective tool for helping our school system attract and retain the best and the brightest educators in Anne Arundel County. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Chang and members of the Appropriations Committee. I'm Grace Wilson, Legislative and Policy Specialist for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. I'd like to thank Delegate Henson for bringing this bill. AACPS supports House Bill 541, which would authorize the Anne Arundel County Council to establish the Anne Arundel County Student Loan Assistance Program for educators. The purpose of this program is to attract, recruit, and retain a diverse cadre of qualified educators in AACPS reflective of the student population that we serve. AACPS supports resources such as this Student Loan Assistance Repayment Program to help recruit a more diverse teacher workforce. We recognize the educational benefits of a diverse workforce that enriches the educational experience of all AACPS students. We believe that the quality of education is directly dependent on the quality of the teacher workforce, which is directly impacted by the school system's ability to recruit and retain high-quality educators. Investing in the development of highly effective teachers and leaders that reflect the diversity and our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion for all ACPS students ensures that all students can grow, belong, and succeed. Accordingly, AACPS respectfully requests a favorable committee report on House Bill 541. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much to the bill sponsor, Ms. Wilson, for presenting the bill. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Thank you very much. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 541. The committee will now move on to House Bill 983, Delegate Zoni, State Personnel, Maryland Department of Health pay rates.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Appropriation Committee. I'm Delegate Pam Gazzoni. I represent Howard County's District 13 and am here in support of House Bill 983 regarding pay rates for teachers. Just a quick note, there is a sponsor amendment, which has just mostly clarifying language, which I have yet to receive from drafting, but we'll get it to you as soon as I have it myself. As you'll hear from my panel, this bill applies to the small number of Maryland Department of Health employed teachers who work in state-run facilities for youth with serious and complex mental health needs, most of whom work at the Regional Institute for Children and Adolescents, or RICA, in Baltimore and Rockville. Specifically, the bill will expand existing pay rate requirements passed in 2020 to include certain employees of Bargaining Unit G. More specifically, it affects approximately 9 Maryland Department of Health teachers. RICA teachers work alongside teachers employed and compensated by Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Montgomery County. RICA facilities provide full spectrum mental health treatment and education for male and female adolescents aged 11 to 17 and a half. RICA Baltimore has both a residential program and day students who travel from multiple counties in the area for school. The children at RICA facilities have complex challenges, often a combination of developmental disabilities and mental health issues. In addition, many have been diverted there in an effort to keep them out of the juvenile justice system. These teachers have specialized training to help address the needs of the children while also providing them with education that aims to keep them at a level such that with successful treatment, they may be able to rejoin their peers. As you will hear, these teaching positions are challenging and can be, and in all honesty are, hazardous. In addition, the MDH employed teachers work year-round, and unlike their county and city employed counterparts, they work 8-hour days. Vacancy rates are high, in part because the pay rates and these additional requirements simply do not align. The job of these teachers is hard, and these children need these teachers. While I do not know all the ins and outs of how the 2020 legislation was developed, I believe these employees and the conditions they work in on a daily basis mirror those of the employees granted similar standing in the original legislation. These teachers, again, whose pay scale does not match that of other teachers they work with, are dedicated to improving the lives of children that without their support could very easily fall through the cracks. In the name of basic fairness, I request a favorable report on HB 983. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Melinda Lawson, and I am not at RICA, but I am the only Maryland Department of Health teacher in any of the state hospitals. I'm also the Director of Education at Clifton T. Perkins Hospital Center. I'm here today to ask for a favorable report for House Bill 983. In 2020, legislation was passed that enacted forensic pay for all employees who have direct patient contact at Clifton T. Perkins Hospital Center. Unfortunately, when that bill was originally written, everyone involved in that legislation thought that for sure, me being a teacher, I would be included under the AFT bargaining units, since it's literally called the American Federation of Teachers. However, my position falls in Unit G. So when bargaining Unit G was inadvertently left out of the original wording, I was left as the only person working at Perkins with direct patient care not receiving forensic pay. Speaking with those originally involved in writing the bill, it was confirmed it was a simple oversight. So for the past 4 years, I've been the only staff member with direct patient care and contact at Perkins who does not receive the forensic pay, even though I work with the same criminally involved psychiatric patients in the same maximum security environment. I think it's also important to recognize that I am one of the few who work on the acute care admissions unit, where the patients are far more unpredictable and far less stable. Working on this unit allows me to begin working with those patients under 21 with special education rights as soon as possible. As a proud Marine Corps veteran, I often have chose the hard road in life, and Perkins is no exception to that. I have witnessed the violence, even experiencing some myself, as I detailed in my written statement. I choose to work there, and I chose to work there. I continue to choose to work there every day. I know the risks. I love my job, and I love working with those patients. I'm here to ask you to recognize that the dangerousness that I face at Clifton T. Perkins is the same as my coworkers who already receive forensic pay. With that, I ask for a favorable report for House Bill 983. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bennett Robley. I am a state educator at RICA Baltimore. I've been at RICA for 10 years as of October. There are a total of 9 teachers in the whole state that would be given this differential pay when updating this. I mean, I have more fingers than that. The work that we do is absolutely critical for these children. I have one student that's a day student that travels by bus from Hagerstown to Catonsville every day. There are not many facilities that are offering these programs. We have kids from all walks of life, and they need us. State teachers are different from your average state teacher or average teacher because we are 12-month employees. We do not get summers off. If there's a snow day, I have to use paid time off like any other state employee. I'm designated co-op critical, so if there is an emergency, I can be called up and I then become a residential unit employee. I'm down the residential unit. In 2020, when the bill was passed, again, the only individuals that did not receive the differential were the state teachers. I have instructional assistants that I work side by side. They're bargaining unit D, so they got the differential, and I supervise them. So it's 4 years in the making that we've been hoping to get this corrected. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to us and hear us out. I know there aren't many of us, so this might not have been a priority for some, but I mean, it means a lot to us. It's very hard for us to recruit and retain teachers, especially in this field. Most teachers do not want to work through the summer, let alone have a chair thrown at them. Last week when we testified in front of the Senate, my count was 102 physical aggression to staff referrals. That day that I testified, we had 4 staff assaulted while I was testifying. One woman was hit in the back with a telephone. So we are, I don't mean to go over, but the final thing I'd like to part with you is that bill enabled us to hire security staff. They are invaluable. But teachers were frequently alone with these children, and that's great. We develop a rapport. We're trained in PMAB, which is about prevention and management of aggressive behaviors. We verbally de-escalate children, but when our verbal skills fail, violence happens, and then we call a code for security to show up. There is that window of time where it's just
summarized
me and
now.
the teacher. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Carol Seiler, a special education teacher at RICA Baltimore. I've held a Maryland State teaching certificate since 1991. I've been a teacher with the Maryland Department of Health since 2010. I facilitate the Structured Learning Center at RICA Baltimore. The Structured Learning Center, commonly known as SLC, is the place where students who had physical aggression to peer or staff or earned significant referrals are placed until they meet the protocol to return to the regular classes. We also house students for safety for themselves or for others, along with dysregulated students. I'm sure you've seen Ben's written testimony along with the attached pictures. I'm the teacher who was bitten on the wrist by a dysregulated student. I needed to have 4 blood draws over 6 months to be sure there was no contamination occurred from that bite. I'm also the teacher who had a pencil held to my throat because a student was demanding my security badge so he could leave SLC. Just this past week, I've stepped between 2 girls fighting in SLC to prevent injuries and stop the fight. I was fortunately not injured. I also assisted with an escort and restraint involving a male student who had previously physically assaulted a peer. During this incident, I was injured, receiving a laceration to my chin. By this time, you may be wondering why I do this. It's because I and my fellow state teachers firmly believe we need to help others even when they cannot help us back. These adolescents need the dedicated state teachers to help educate them while they're receiving counseling and therapy. I would like to thank the committee for allowing me the opportunity to speak in favor of House Bill 983. I would ask that you please support our state teachers and vote in favor of House Bill 983. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of the committee for the bill sponsor or the witnesses? Delegate Grice.
First one is thank you for being here. There's something unique to this in our state where you're doing work that was this we never wanted to and taken care of. And so again. Very small. I have maybe that's a good question. I'm hoping that we can maybe ask the answer it. It's typically something that negotiated in the bargaining process. We need to that's a year. Hopefully this is we can get never. This is something I brought up in the past where we should be doing this, to be quite honest. Now, and I would hope that this $54,000 that could have been resolved in the. So, what was the snag there? What happened? Why are you guys here?
So I worked with the original committee. I was in a lot of the meetings for the original bill in 2020. That issue was, again, I am the only person with the direct care that's in Unit G. So it was a complete oversight when all of the unions were listed, that Union G wasn't listed because honestly, nobody thought that there was anybody in Unit G there. After that, I went back, found out it was just an oversight. I went through all the channels, whether HR, DBM, all of that. DBM refused to help fix anything. They said they would only follow the law as it was written. And then I guess multiple bargaining years, it kind of got, I don't know, shoved aside or whatever.
And I think a part of that can also be attributed to the number of state teachers. So where she is the only teacher at Perkins, there are a total of 6 state teachers out of, I think, 45 educational staff at Rica, Baltimore. Most of our teachers are employed by Baltimore County. We also have a handful of Baltimore City teachers. So it is a strange little contract situation that exists with Rica, Baltimore. Rica Rockville is almost exclusively run by Montgomery County, but there's a small little wing that MDH runs with I don't know how many students are in there. Do you know? 4 and 1 state teacher. So there aren't many of us, and I hate to say easy to miss, but I think that's just how it went.
So did they not fund this because you said something to do with they had to follow the restrictions in the law? So do we have to change those restrictions in order for them to fund you, or is it that that was a concession that they were not willing to make during?
Are you talking about DBM?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes. When all of us reached out to them, they said it is not required in the law for us to give you this. You'll need to get it up.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. We went to them and asked politely.
I gotcha.
Didn't go so well.
So it does not have.
We are also on a different pay scale, being the teachers. So being on that separate pay scale also, I think, may have caused some of those issues as well.
If we amend this law, then it won't not have to be negotiated in the
correct
bargaining process. I gotcha. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Bryce. Are there any other questions from members of the committee for the bill sponsor witnesses? Great, thank you very much. We also have Felicia Hawkins. Is she here?
Yes, I'm actually just here to answer any questions, but they were able to answer the questions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 983. The committee will now move on to House Bill 1005, Delegate McCaskill, Correctional Officers Retirement System Membership.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I bring up my esteemed but small panel? I'll get started. Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues and Mr. Chair. For the record, I am Alethea McCaskill, and I'm here asking for a favorable vote for House Bill 1005. I'm here joined with the esteemed AFSCME Denise Gilmore and another sister here, Alicia Mack, who's substituting for one of our brothers who fell ill. House Bill 1005 modifies the correctional officers' retirement system to encompass staff with comparable job classifications to those with Clifton T. Perkins Hospital at North facilities within the Maryland Department of Health. This bill aims to enable the state retirement and pension system to transfer credible services of employees into the correctional officers' retirement system, CORS, as we know it, with the exception of employees who opt out of transferring service credits. This adjustment to the CORS is meant to eliminate disparities between security, direct care, nurses, and other staff between facilities already within the correctional officers' retirement system. This retirement system offers a sizable increase in retirement benefits to staff working in healthcare facilities with criminal-involved patients, and that benefit should be extended to all relevant staff working in the now 9 facilities in the Maryland Department of Health that handles said patients. It also is necessary to recognize that this bill is important because it holds a concern about employee retention. With Spring Grove Hospital marked for closure within the next 20 years, it remains impertinent that we retain coherent staffing over this proposed transitionary period. The correctional officers' retirement system membership is a crucial factor in sustaining this workforce, men and women who put their lives and bodies on the line every shift. Many staff members and officers have left this workplace due to the burnout experienced by working with this population as they help support these patients to a stable condition. I cannot stress enough the vital tasks and duties these employees exercise daily. It is essential that the state pass this retirement bill in an effort to address the staff retention crisis we now face. House Bill 10005 is a positive step towards this goal. In the name of the correctional officers' retirement system, I ask for a favorable report and thank you for your time and consideration. And now I will pass it down to my panelists.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. My name is Denise Gilmore, and I am the Legislative Director for AFSCME Maryland. We are very proud to represent state hospital workers, and I want to acknowledge some that are behind me today that have traveled as far away from as Allegheny County. This bill is different from other CORS membership bills that your committee has seen in recent years, in that we're talking about a group of employees who really should have been in CORS all along. Security attendants at Perkins entered the CORS system in 1982. What this bill does is it adds those comparable titles at the other facilities that have the same patients, they do the same work, into that CORS retirement system so that we fix this parity issue. Our members perform incredibly important work in these hospitals, but they are really physically taxing too. And like other positions that have been legislated into the CORS retirement system, these folks are every bit as deserving of a 20-year retirement as some of those other titles that we see that are included already. So we urge a favorable report on HB 1005. I also want to report that we've worked very closely with the State Retirement Agency on this bill. They've approved all 6 titles that are included in the bill. And I understand Ann is here to answer any technical questions on the bill too, if we need her to. So thank you so much. And I want to hand it over to Ms. Alicia.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Alicia Mack, and I'm a member of AFSCME Local 266. I've worked as a security attendant at Spring Grove Hospital Center in Catonsville for 2 years. Before I came to Spring Grove, I worked as a correctional officer in the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services for 18 years. In corrections, I was in the CORS 20-year retirement system. Regardless of what the security level in the prisons were, we all had the same pay, the same benefits, and the same retirement. I had friends who did this work at Clifton T. Perkins Hospital Center, who were in the CORS retirement system, and I assumed that I would also be in CORS as well when I came to Spring Grove. I was surprised to learn that when I arrived at Spring Grove, This is a facility that receives the same court-ordered individuals as Clifton T. Perkins and other correctional facilities. However, it did not have the same retirement benefit. I really like my work at Spring Grove. I did come here because my mom worked at Spring Grove for many years, and I had siblings that at some point in time have worked at Spring Grove as well. And even though it's similar court-ordered population that we deal with, it too can be challenging and sometimes dangerous to deal with. Spring Grove is a much more therapeutic environment than the prisons that I've worked. And at Spring Grove, I am part of the treatment team for the patients, and I really enjoy that. I enjoy being part of the process and seeing people feel better and successfully re-enter into the community. But I don't think it's fair that we're on a different retirement system when we do the same work with the same individuals. And our facilities are only miles apart from one another. Please help us correct this disparity and provide a favorable report on House Bill 1005. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions for the bill sponsor or witnesses? Okay, great. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 1005. The committee will now move on to House Bill 1061, Delegate Young, School Construction Public Charter School Facility Fund Establishment.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Appropriations Committee, especially my district mate, Delegate Smith. It's a pleasure to be here, Delegate Young, on behalf of House Bill 1061, Public Charter School Facility Fund Establishment. Colleagues, this bill is essentially about making sure that our public charter schools have a floor. Certainly, we know that many of our charter schools are tasked with raising funds to supplement their budgets. And so what this bill would do is provide for the establishment of a fund, but the governor may provide, appropriation to the tune of, under the bill, $2,000 per pupil to support the operations and facilities costs associated with running these public charter schools. Specifically, we're talking about debt service, rent, operations, maintenance, insurance, usage fees, and other relevant expenses that the Interagency Commission on School Construction would determine. We would also ask that same body to be administering the fund. We have 48 public charter schools in our state with roughly 24,000 students that attend. Again, these are public schools and public students. In my district, we have Lily Mae Carroll Jackson, City Neighbors, Afia Bella Edison, Brems Lane, to name a few. I just want to let y'all know that Maryland, we lag behind. 33 other states provide this type of funding for their public charters. In DC, they provide $3,200 per pupil, and Maryland, obviously, not providing any. So again, just hopeful that you all would be able to consider this, understanding our budgetary constraints. That's why we have that May. And we want to just simply establish this fund so that we can move forward with it to hopefully provide those funds in the future. And I urge a favorable report. And just want to highlight that we've got some students here today to talk about some of their experiences, as well as some administrators as well. And so looking forward to their testimony and hoping that you will find some positive and some encouraging information that could be helpful to you as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kyle, and I'm a fifth grader at the Bel Air Edison Elementary School. I've been at the school for 5 years, and I have been accepted into the Ingenuity program for the fall, which means I had to have excellent grades and test scores. Over the past 5 years, I have experienced caring teachers who can also be fun. I have learned an exceptional amount of Black history, which is a part of my history and culture, so it's important to me. We have Fun Spirit Weeks that teach us about different holidays that I've never heard of, like Read Across America Week. During these weeks, we get to wear different things because we're a uniform school. Even though we're a uniform school, our uniforms aren't super formal, which I also like. Some of my favorite memories at my school has provided for me were things like trips to Port Discovery and an after-school program that includes the BE Run Club and flag football.
Due to my positive behavior, I have also been invited to special experiences like Canada Design, where I was invited to practice architecture and got to imagine how to make pools and create sketches of buildings. We also got to spend time here in Annapolis one day and had a tour of the State House and were able to meet with many important lawmakers like yourselves. There are a lot of students who struggle in our school because of their experiences outside of our school. If we had more funding, we could use that money to help these students not struggle as much and to help them do better. We could probably have a lot more experiences if we could better help the students who struggle. Thank you. Thank you for listening to my testimony and for serving the people of our state in Annapolis.
Your testimony, really appreciate it. Next.
Good afternoon, esteemed members of the committee. My name is Shepard Namika, and I am a sixth grader at Frederick Classical Charter School. I am here today with friends and members of the Frederick County Charter School community to advocate for increased funding for our school's facilities. As an active member in this community, I've witnessed firsthand the challenges stemming from inadequate facilities, and addressing this issue is crucial for our academic success and overall well-being. Charter schools like ours are renowned for academic excellence and holistic student development. My brother Jordan is a testament to this. He has unique learning abilities, but he thrived under the tailored education at our charter school, paving the way for his success in a traditional high school setting. Charter schools, being public schools, get funds to keep them operational, but because we don't get funds for our facilities, we have to use some of the operational funding to pay rent of almost $750,000 every year. That is a lot of money that could be put to a better use. Today, my school is in a business building, so we don't have the space for proper classrooms, sports, or science labs, and we have recess in a makeshift playground that has been portioned from a parking lot. Lacking these essential resources hinders our academic progress and affects our well-being. When you invest in our school's facilities, you are making an investment in our education and the future of our community. And by providing the necessary resources, you empower us to reach our full potential and contribute positively to our society. I'm here asking you to please prioritize funding for the renovation, expansion, or construction of facilities for public charter schools by passing Bill HB 1061. This will demonstrate your commitment to ensuring that every student has access to quality education in a safe environment. Thank you for considering this petition and for your continued support. Together, let's create a brighter future for all public school students, including those in charter schools. Thank you, Shepard Namika, sixth grade, Frederick Classical Charter School.
Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, can we just appreciate these students? Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. McKenna, and also Ms. Namika, for taking time out of your day to come to Annapolis. We have a question from Delegate Metzger.
We have one more.
Wait, I'll wait.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Medema, and I'm with the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools. We support states as they create an equitable facility funding environment for public school students. We ask you to support HB 1061 to provide facility funds to help close the gap in funding. Maryland can join other jurisdictions like neighboring Pennsylvania and Washington, D.C., who realize it's the state's responsibility to support all public school students equally. All schools need to spend more money in the classroom, not on the classroom. This bill will help schools direct more money into the classroom rather than borrowing money for facilities and then paying high interest rates. The financial impact of this bill does not have to fall squarely on the taxpayers of the state of Maryland. We can multiply its impact and leverage other funds. The federal government has a special funding program called the State Facilities Incentive Grant that helps offset the cost of this type of legislation. That federal program provides federal funds on a variable matching basis to select states that have per pupil facilities aid programs like this. The program can pay up to 90% of the costs in the first year. If the state of Maryland enacts this legislation, it would then be eligible to apply for this federal incentive grant later this year to help offset the cost of this bill. And we are available to help the state of Maryland apply for those funds if this legislation passes. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Medema. I have a question from Delegate Metzger.
Thank you. I'm not going to thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Young, just by the way, young people, you did a phenomenal job. You'll remember this the rest of your life. It takes a lot of nerve to stand behind that desk, so you are to be applauded. God bless. Delegate Young, just for some of the committee members that might not know the difference between charter school and regular public school, could you explain to that?
Sure. And give me a little grace on this one too.
Sure.
I just joined the Ways and Means Committee, so some of these challenge definitions I'm learning as well. But traditional schools are what we know, our regular public schools, whereas charter schools generally are not, maybe nonprofit or run with a board. And they have, certain criteria that they have to meet to be able to run those schools. And then certainly they are expected to maintain very similar academic outcomes as well for our students, but they may not always get the same sort of resources. I think you might be able to help with some of this as well.
I think you nailed it.
Okay, it is. You said I nailed it.
You nailed it right to the T.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from members of the committee for this panel? Okay, great. Thank you very much. We'll call up the next set of witnesses.
Thank you.
We have Marta Harding, the Maryland Alliance for Public Charter Schools. Deborah Hemingway. Alexandra Hemingway. Tara Dunsmore.
Mr. Vice Chair, do you mind which order we go in?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Tara Dunsmore, and I am the president of MMCI, a nonprofit operator of 2 public charter schools in Frederick County. I should add, I am also the parent of a student at one of those charter schools. Our schools provide high-quality public school education in a specialized Montessori environment. With over 3,000 applicants each year, we are approved to serve a combined 858 students, and our schools are staffed by more than 90 public school system employees. Despite calling for commensurate funding, Maryland's charter law contains no provisions for the funding of facilities, essentially excluding public charter schools from the capital and facility maintenance funds that flow to traditional public schools. Instead, our schools must rely on operating funds or special fundraising to pay for all facilities costs, including capital improvements, repairs, mortgages, leases, etc. This disparity in funding means that MMCI schools spend approximately 18% of our per pupil allotment each year to pay for our facilities. Facilities needs force us to make difficult decisions each year about staffing levels, classroom materials, and student services. Despite these challenges, in 2023, MMCI successfully purchased our first building for one of our charter schools, Monocacy Valley Montessori, and we're under contract to purchase a second building for our other school, Carroll Creek Montessori. For perspective, the total cost of our 2 buildings combined is less than $30 million, which is still significantly less than the total cost of just one traditional elementary school in Frederick County. Imagine if that $30 million were able to go straight into the classroom. Today, I'm asking you to reflect on our experience as charter operators and help to ensure that our public charter schools are equitably and adequately funded so that we may continue to provide the innovative, specialized education for the Maryland public school students that we serve. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing your favorable report for this legislation.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Deborah Hemingway, and I am very dedicated and deeply rooted to our wonderful state. My dedication runs deep as I'm the founder and managing partner of a young venture firm that supports startups here in Maryland. I'm an alumnus of the University of Maryland College Park, where I earned a PhD in biophysics. I'm a proud long-term resident of Anne Arundel County. I volunteer for a neighborhood HOA board, the PTA board, coach little kids soccer, swim team. I frequently volunteer at a local food bank and women's support center. The only way I could be more dedicated to this state is if I ran for the House of Delegates. But thankfully, my delegate, Mark Chain, is doing a fantastic job, so I don't have to. All right. So since we have a fantastic House of Delegates here, I can turn my attention to the delights of my life, including my 4 children, all born here in Maryland, including my eldest daughter, Alexandria, a 3rd grade student at Chesapeake Science Point Elementary School, who will also testify today. So I'm here today because I care deeply about this state, our community, our schools, and our children. I'm dedicated to empowering and investing in the next generation. And this bill, which alleviates some of the unnecessary financial burden that our most precious and foundational institutions is the most efficient and most productive way of fostering excellence in our state, our community, our schools, and our children. I have had the privilege of witnessing the impact that attending a public charter school can have this year, as all three of my school-age children attend Chesapeake Science Point Elementary School. Then this institution's inaugural year has showcased its potential to positively and significantly impact our children's futures by providing a unique environment for kids who thrive in the public charter school setting. And so with this bill's support, it means more than support of a mere facilities fund. It's support for our communities, our schools, and the children across our state. Thank you.
Hello, hello everyone. My name is Alexandra Hemingway, and I am 9 years old, and I am in 3rd grade at Chesapeake Science Point Elementary School in Hannibal, Maryland. I'm here today because I believe in making our school the best place it can be for learning and growing. I love my school because all of the teachers are super nice to me and all of the kids in my school. My favorite subject is science, and I love having recess and lunch. And sometimes at the end of the day, I have clubs, and my favorite clubs is Entrepreneurial Club. When I grow up, I want to be a surgeon, and my school is giving me a strong foundation to reach my dreams of becoming a doctor, and that's why I love my school. I know with a little more help like this bill provides, that my school could be even better for me and students like me across the state. Thank you for supporting this bill.
Hard to follow that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marta Harding. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools. I'm just going to touch on highlight a couple of points about the bill. First, the short title is a little bit of a misnomer because this bill really isn't about capital. That is not covered by the bill. It is actually designed to allow for reimbursement of eligible expenses for the ongoing costs of maintaining a functioning school building for the education of students, things like rent, utilities, regular O&M, regular repairs, property insurance, et cetera. It is a reimbursement framework. In other words, it has to be actual documented expenses that the school can show that it spent on these eligible expenses over the course of the preceding year, up to the cap of $2,000 per pupil. That number, by the way, is the amount that the IAC found in 2022 is the average that public charter schools are spending today on their facilities, which, as you know, are not covered, there's no allowance for that under current Maryland law. This does not duplicate any existing funding under Maryland law. There is no existing allotment to charter schools for their facilities. If a charter school is occupying a leased building from a public school, in theory, the local school system could apply to the IAC for funding for capital expenses for that school, but to date, it has not happened. As the sponsor indicated, Maryland lags behind many other states, including our neighbor in the District of Columbia, which provides a $3,200 per pupil allotment for facilities funding. And lastly, I do want to emphasize the bill is set up as a permissive bill. It does not require the governor to fund it. It authorizes it. And as you heard from the prior witness, if funding is that there is an ability to get a federal grant for a portion of these expenses. So we think it would be a step forward even as a permissive thing. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Will McKenna. I'm the founder and executive director of AFIA Baltimore. I started my career as a teacher in Baltimore City in 1991, and I have been principal in both a traditional and charter school for 10 years. I'm in my 14th year as an executive director. AFIA Baltimore is a nonprofit organization responsible for managing public charter schools in Baltimore City. We operate 2 schools across 3 facilities. The Tunbridge School in Govans, the Bel-Air Edison School, with 2 buildings in the Bel-Air Edison neighborhood. We have about 1,500 students. 2 of our 3 facilities are historical former parochial schools, school buildings, which we own. And the 3rd facility is in a Baltimore City Public School System owned building, which we lease, but we pay utilities only, and we were responsible for all other repairs and maintenance on the property, including significant capital investment. The 2 operator-owned buildings were in great despair when we purchased them in 2007 and 10, as they had been pretty much abandoned for years prior to the Catholic schools when they went out of business. Our district-owned building was in poor condition as well when we began leasing it in 2016. At that time and every year since, we have invested an incredible amount of money in our buildings. From our per pupil, currently, we pay for our debt service on 2 buildings and rent on a 3rd. Improvements each summer, which we do in our buildings, both as a requirement of our loan obligations and for the high standards we hold for our school communities. Utilities, our facility and cleaning staff to cover 159,000 square feet, security, insurance, landscaping, and regular upkeep and repairs on everything from signage to graffiti removal and lighting. On average, in our schools, this works out to about 10% of our per pupil allocation being spent on these things. Much of this money could be spent in our classrooms instead. With the passage of funding of HB 1061, allowing us to invest more in student programming, both during and after school, and teacher training, and continue to provide our students with high quality programming during the summer. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much to all the witnesses here. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Delegate Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to you for testifying. Thank you for being here. I just have a question for the adults on the panel. So I know the IAC updated their guidance for this current year, but it was last year that they updated the guidance to allow charters to be able to apply, obviously under certain criteria. Are any of your schools or any schools within the coalition taking advantage of that opportunity to apply for IAC funding?
Delegate Solomon, I can find out. To my knowledge, it is not allowed for a charter school to apply directly, but the local school system could apply if the charter school is leasing a building from the local school system. And that is about 25% of charters that are. To date, it hasn't happened. Whether anybody is pursuing it, I can certainly find out and follow up with you. Whether anything's going on now, I know it hasn't happened to date.
Okay. I think the fiscal note makes it seem like the IAC has since updated their regs, so maybe we can talk offline about that.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for the question, Delegate Solomon. Are there any other questions from members of the committee for the witnesses? I have a question for the special witness. Ms. Lexi. Ms. Lexi, I understand that this is your second time testifying before a committee. And then you previously testified before the Senate Budget and Taxation. And then where did you go after you testified with mommy? Did you go get ice cream?
Yeah, I got ice cream.
Okay, well, get mommy take you out for ice cream today because you did a great job. All right, great job, great job. And I'll see you back at the neighborhood. Okay, that concludes the hearing. That's right. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 1061. The committee will now move on to House Bill 1172, Delegate Lopez, Federal Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, Employee Certification and Awareness Materials. Delegate Lopez.
Forgiven after 10 years of full-time employment in the public sector and after making monthly payments on these loans during that time. Maryland is one of the most educated states in the country. It's estimated that more than 800,000 Marylanders owe about $35 billion in student loans, with the average Marylander owing about $44,000. This financial pressure is worse for employees who do absolutely vital work in our public sector. Our teachers, our first responders, our healthcare workers, just to name a few. They often face lower wages than their counterparts in the private sector. So this bill makes 3 changes relating to the administration of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program in Maryland. The first change works within the existing structure of the Student Loan Ombudsman's Office to develop standardized materials about the program for public service employers in Maryland, and they can provide those materials to their employees yearly. This will ensure that employees are aware that the loan forgiveness benefits come with being a state employee and a public service employee from the very beginning and throughout their employment. With so many positions in our state government open, this can be a cost-free recruitment and retention tool. The second change allows for public service employers to annually certify their employees' employment directly with the Department of Education and requires them to proactively provide certification forms for employees who have been requested them before. This moves Maryland in line with changes that the federal government is making for its employees. Lastly, following the federal guidelines, this bill clarifies time requirements for considering an adjunct or non-tenured professor at a public college or university full-time. This reflects the time that those instructors spend outside the classroom preparing their lessons and grading student assignments, which provides a more accurate assessment of the necessary hours they devote to their positions. These updates will not only improve the financial future of many of our residents, but also help us attract and retain quality state employees who might otherwise choose to pursue employment in the private sector. With the changes proposed in this bill, Maryland will make clear to public service employees that it is committed to ensuring the promise of loan forgiveness is realized for them, not only protecting their financial futures, but ensuring that Maryland has a devoted, caring workforce to continue its public services. I thank you for your time and I ask for a favorable report.
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, my name is Tanea Moore, and I'm the Director of Policy with the Cash Campaign of Maryland. CASH stands for Creating Assets, Savings, and Hope, and we're a nonprofit that promotes economic advancement for low to middle income individuals in Baltimore and across the state. We support this bill because this bill will ensure that more Marylanders who are working in the public sector will gain credit towards the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Thank you for sponsoring this legislation, Delegate Lopez. CASH staffs the Financial Education and Capability Commission, which is chaired by Senator Brooks and Delegate Stein. The commission has 4 core tasks, including improving the financial education and capability of residents in Maryland. The commission's 2023 report included a recommendation to support increasing the awareness of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. This recommendation comes from the fact that Maryland has a large public service sector, and many of those employees have student loan debt. These are people working for the state and local government, nonprofits, medical institutions, and more. In the early stages of the program, many applicants, around 98%, were rejected due to strict reporting requirements, but the Biden administration worked to rectify this. However, there is still work to be done to make sure the program is more accessible. This bill will ensure that more information is spread about the program and more employees are able to apply for forgiveness. My colleagues will dig deeper into the bill and talk about the impact this will have on our Marylanders who choose to work in public service. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Chang and members of the committee. My name is Amy Salata, and I'm the Outreach and Advocacy Manager at the Student Borrower Protection Center. We're a national nonprofit policy organization focused solely on the student debt crisis. I'm testifying today on behalf of SBPC in support of HB 1172. This bill would require that public service employers certify their employees' work for the purpose of Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program when asked to do so by their employees, and require that Maryland's ombudsperson create and distribute material related to the program to ensure broader participation. In addition, the bill would essentially unlock tens of thousands of dollars in financial relief for Maryland adjunct faculty by leveraging the federal PSLF program. I'd like to spend my time contextualizing this bill and similar national and state level changes meant to open up PSLF for public service workers. This federal program provides that public service workers who work full-time as defined in federal regulation as at least 30 hours a week can qualify to have their federal student loans canceled after 10 years. The regulations, however, are intentionally flexible in order to let employers and employees tabulate those hours with the end goal of having a signed piece of paper documenting the average hours worked over a given period of time. Employers play no role in determining eligibility for the program. They merely have to sign off on hours worked. As long as both parties are on the same page and operate in good faith, the federal government has no problem with how they arrived there. This is where the state law can come in to facilitate the accounting process. This bill would compel the ombudsperson to provide necessary information on the PSLF program to public service workers across the state. According to federal data on the PSLF program, and thanks to recent improvements by the Biden administration, 22,580 Marylanders have had their debt canceled through PSLF. However, we estimate that nearly 190,000 Marylanders are eligible for PSLF. This data on program participation highlights the need for this bill so that workers can be notified of their eligibility and take the necessary steps like getting their PSLF forms certified by their employer. As Delegate Lopez mentioned, there's also a 3.35 multiplier for adjunct faculty, which would unlock tens of thousands of dollars in relief for folks. So thank you for your time, and we hope that you offer a positive report.
Greetings, Vice Chair Chang and committee members. My name is Dr. Tisa Silver Kennedy. I'm the founder and executive director of the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. Since January of 2022, my team has helped public servants, primarily in Maryland, eliminate nearly $14 million in debt by way of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. We have helped borrowers statewide, but in the past year, our efforts have focused on pre-K through 12th grade educators in Prince George's County and Baltimore City. We go into the schools, meeting with teachers during their lunch breaks or planning periods. With our help and just 3 pieces of information, which include their employer's employer ID number, their employment dates, and the average number of hours they work per week, a public servant can complete their portion of the form in about 10 minutes or so. But what happens next? They see this. They see that because it depends on what the employer does. Will the employer sign electronically or demand a paper application? Will the employer reject the application because the employee entered 38 hours instead of 37.5 because they don't know that the online form doesn't allow for the entry of decimals? Or for an adjunct faculty member, will the employer refuse to sign because as a part-timer, the employer doesn't think that the employee is eligible? These are just a few of the questions that can lead to rejects, repeat submissions, and unfortunately, people just giving up on the program. With HB 1172, we can increase awareness and remove such unnecessary and burdensome barriers. This bill, with no fiscal note, will position Maryland to provide its public servants with equitable access to a federal benefit that employers can use to their advantage as well. After a public servant has their debt eliminated through PSLF, their lives change, and so do their local communities. We've helped many Marylanders secure the benefit they have earned, but for every one, there are many more that are left behind. As I said last year with Delegate Lopez advocating for the same bill with HB 1172, the state can help employers position themselves as gateways instead of gatekeepers. So in closing, I ask that you issue a favorable report on HB 1172 and open the gates. Thank you.
The bill sponsor and all the witnesses, are there any questions from members of the committee? Great. This afternoon, we have listed joining virtual Barbara Gruber. It's Barbara Gruber. Okay, that concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 1172. The committee will now move on to the last bill this afternoon. It's House Bill 1434, Delegate Lewis, Department of Human Services, Electronic Benefits Transfer Cards, Restoration of Benefits. Delegate Lewis, you can bring up your panel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, esteemed colleagues. Mr. Chair, may I bring up my panel?
Sure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. Thank you very much. I'm Delegate Robin Lewis. Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, esteemed colleagues of Appropriations. I don't often come down here, so it's nice to see you. Thank you for welcoming me. I'm here on behalf of House Bill 1434. This is the Department of Human Services Electronic Benefits Transfer Cards, Restoration of Benefits. This bill reaffirms the state's commitment to restoring certain stolen electronic benefits while also laying the groundwork to sustain this newly created benefit. Now, as you all remember, last year during session 2023, Maryland was the first in the nation to establish a stolen benefits replacement program. This was made possible by the assertive leadership of our governor, Governor Moore, and his administration. Under leadership of Secretary Rafael Lopez, the Department of Human Services leapt into action, submitted the very first state plan in the nation, and got this stolen benefits restoration program going. The principle is that no Marylander should be victimized by the fraudulent theft of their electronic benefits. As you may have heard, the program is now working really well. Since it started last year, the Department of Human Services has reimbursed more than $20 million of stolen benefits to over 31,000 Maryland households. And those were statistics from about 3 weeks ago. We probably have more updated data for you if needed. The challenge, though, we've got this great program. We came out in front of every other state. We're doing great, but we don't have a dedicated funding stream. Now, as I've worked on this bill, I've been really fortunate to have a strong and vibrant DHS and stakeholder partnership that came together last year. This group has been really beneficial to me as I worked on this bill and understanding concerns, opportunities, and obstacles. I'll flag something for you that will be important. This bill, the bill before you, has attracted a lot of energy, a lot of energetic, thoughtful stakeholder engagement, and I've welcomed that. I've done my very best to bring folks together, talk about concerns, look at solutions, and the Department of Human Services has been a fantastic partner in that effort. Now that we created this program to restore stolen electronic benefits, the program feels like a benefit. People are expecting it. We've got to figure out how to fund it. So this builds on last year's bill. Benefits available under EBT, electronic benefit cards, are the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, or SNAP, and the Temporary Aid to Needy Families, if I got that right. These benefits are delivered via the card. Theft of those benefits can include physical theft, somebody pocketing your card. Identity fraud is another type of theft. And there's also electronic skimming practices, which I'm sure you guys have all heard about. Last year's bill required Department of Human Services to take steps to reduce the incident of these fraudulent activities. More security protections. Look into that. Other provisions of last year's bill include procurement, notice, and reporting. Now, this bill was made possible. Last year's bill was made possible by a change in federal government rule under the 2022 Federal Consolidated Appropriations Act. This allowed the states to take control of the nationwide epidemic of EBT fraud, giving states authority to use those federal nutrition dollars to reimburse stolen benefits. That order from the feds, though, is temporary and short term. It doesn't really create a long-term program. But in Maryland, we're all in for this. We're all in. We want to make this program sustainable. Now, the other thing to know, and I know the Secretary will talk about the funding picture, but I want to flag one last thing for you. I have 2 sponsor amendments. Hopefully they're both available in your floor system. These amendments were developed in partnership with DHS and all the stakeholders. And we agreed that they would be, they're agreeable, they're sponsor amendments. The first amendment changes some of the technical language, restoring the original bill language where the term may was converted back to shall. And secondly, the second amendment proposes to create a work group to study how to develop a dedicated funding stream to keep this program going. And that dedicated funding approach it's just like what you guys do all the time with programs like, oh gosh, there are many. Medicaid is an example. And there are others. You guys will know better than I do. I'm on a policy committee. I love spending money. You guys have helped us figure out where to get it. So with that, I thank you for your consideration and I ask a favorable report. With your indulgence, I'll turn the mic to my sponsor panelist, Secretary Rafael Lopez.
Thank you, Delegate Lewis. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Shetty and honorable members of the committee. I'm Rafael Lopez and I serve as the Secretary of the Department of Human Services. We lead our work based on 12 core values of our administration, one of which is to move with integrity. And as such, we must raise two components of HB 1434. Number one, it's of paramount importance that we make fiscally responsible choices and take a disciplined approach while ensuring Marylanders receive the services they need and deserve. And number two, we must be honest and transparent in how we communicate to Marylanders. Marylanders experienced the same rise in benefit theft felt across the nation. Prior to last year, Maryland's policy to replace stolen benefits was to do nothing. In partnership with the legislature, advocates, and victims of benefit theft, we move with urgency to challenge the status quo. Without a roadmap, Maryland created the first stolen benefits program in the nation. Together, we move from idea to action to enact the Prevent Electronic Benefits Theft Act of 2023, which went well beyond what the federal government would have replaced in stolen benefits. Yet again, Maryland led. As of 6:54 this morning, Maryland has replaced over 22 million in benefits for over 33,000 households in every single one of our 24 jurisdictions. We left no one behind. Combining federal funds with state general funds made it possible for Maryland to create a simple stolen benefits replacement program for our customers. Since last year, 64% of stolen benefits were replaced with federal funds, totaling approximately $14.1 million. Unfortunately, the federal program is set to expire on September 30th of this year, and we can't predict what will happen. If Congress does not reauthorize the program, 100% of the responsibility for replacing stolen benefits shifts to the state. Governor Moore has intentionally included almost $28 million to replace stolen benefits in the 2025 budget. But under current state statute, we must replace stolen benefits even if there is no money appropriated for that purpose. Let us be clear, we are committed to reimbursing benefits that are stolen, and Delegate Lewis's bill helps make sure Maryland can deliver on our commitment by linking the reimbursement of stolen benefits to a source of funding.
Mr. Secretary,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you want to wrap up your
Yes, I have
sentence?
two more lines, absolutely.
Okay.
So bottom line, HB 1434 does not change the statutory obligation for DHS to replace stolen benefits. We support the bill because we move with integrity and we want to make sure we can deliver on this commitment, and we respectfully request a favorable report of HB 1434. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill Sponsor, and thank you, Mr. Secretary. Delegate Grice for a question.
Thank you, Madam Subcommittee Chair. I don't know what we're like third in line here for that, right? So yeah, I mean, we have $22 million in losses. And you know, my concern about this is accountability. I mean, out of that $22 million, how many people are sitting in jail right now for stealing somebody's food benefits? I mean, seriously, that's a problem. That's like one of the most messed up things you can possibly do to somebody else is steal their food benefits. And that being said, one, how many people are going to jail for this? And two, how many out of that 22 million, how many people are paying restitution and out of that? That's my first question, and you can answer that, and then I'll have a couple more follow-up questions.
Thank you. I think, I don't know your rules here, but I think the secretary would be best to answer that.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, okay.
Just want to make sure we're following whatever procedure you'd like. Absolutely. Thank you, Delegate. Yes. Thank you for the question. So there's a couple of ways to think about this. So very directly on the issue of the egregious and unethical behavior of stealing someone's benefits, absolutely people should be going to jail for it. That said, Maryland is part of the rest of the nation, which is actually, it's a national problem. So actually we're working closely with our Office of Inspector General, providing information to the CIA, to the Secret Service and the FBI, just like many other states across the nation. We don't always know when they're pursuing the information that we share with them. Oftentimes, and twice in the last couple of months that I can think of, there were rings of individuals who were arrested. Mostly, I believe, in California and somewhere in the Midwest. We believe that there's actually a sophisticated ring that is causing the skimming. So we join you in that repudiation of that benefit theft. Secondly, on the issue of the approach to theft in general, we have been really proactive in Maryland around trying to model ways to decrease theft. But as I said, it is a national problem. So for example, we have introduced over the first 6 months and 9 months a variety of features that had never been tried before in Maryland. And quite frankly, we're not as universal across the country, including lock, unlock card features, changes of PINs, and a variety of ways to engage who is using your card at any moment in time. Ideally, we want these cards to be chipped, which will be equal to the way in which all of us have in our pockets bank cards and credit cards that are chipped, which would increase security. Unfortunately, that has not been a priority nationally, nor in Maryland. And we're trying to model that kind of engagement. Not only trying to be one of the first states amongst the nation, we understand California will be releasing a first ever chipped feature sometime next month. We will learn quickly from what they're doing so that we can try to model that kind of protection measure here, because ultimately, all of us should not be worrying about replacing what was taken. We should be looking forward to investing in further anti-poverty reduction strategies.
So if someone reports their card stolen, there's no way to deactivate that card at all?
Oh, absolutely.
There is now.
There is.
Okay.
There is.
All right, good.
Absolutely. In fact, there's a variety of SMS text features, which we also worked very closely with our private vendor. I would argue that while we've done a lot of things very quickly, we have a lot more work to do to communicate this out. We send the messages out via text, via email, via our partners, in every notification that we send out. It's still not enough. We have toolkits we developed from scratch in multiple languages to work with people across the state. And even though we've done those things as a first ever for the state of Maryland, we are still not moving as fast as we'd love to move because there was no roadmap for this. We literally created some of the toolkits ourselves.
So if somebody reports their card stolen, you guys cancel?
Absolutely.
So someone say if I get that benefit, I can call and say it was stolen. I can't use 2 cards, right?
No,
Okay.
no, absolutely not.
And how many times, I mean, is there an unlimited number of times that somebody can say that their card was stolen? Because obviously they're not securing something that it's of value.
Right.
And we should make sure that there's some accountability on the user's part too, that they secure those cards and use them in a way that's, because obviously it's taxpayer money that's on that card and they should treat it as such.
It is, but I would respectfully clarify one point that I believe you made, and if I misinterpreted, please correct me. One of the things that we've been trying to do is dispel the myth that it is the fault of our customers for having their benefits stolen. From our research, from the literature nationally that we're understanding, from talking to states across the country, most often a person goes to the grocery store to buy milk for their children, and that's when they find out. Or they had money deposited on these cards last night at 12:01 a.m. and by 6 a.m. it's gone. It's not because the individual didn't do something or didn't take responsibility. It's because thieves have sophisticated technology to skim from a variety of sources. Now, to that point, we are working closely with our outreach partners and community advocates to stress what we can do to take control of our cards while they're in our possession, including things like lock and unlock features and making sure that we change PINs and passwords and track those kinds of things. And even then, unfortunately, what we're learning with our sister states across the country, the theft has still happened, which is why we were really clear that Maryland alone cannot generate a solution to a national problem. We are working very closely and feverishly to reduce the theft overall.
No, I agree with that. And it's happened to all of us, with a lot of our bank
Happened to me
cards and all
3
that.
times last year.
It happens more
Correct.
often than it should. However, what I'm saying though, realistically, it only happens a certain number of times to most people. If that happens, I don't know, say 10 or 12 times within a 12-month period, then somebody's probably being fairly careless. I would say they're probably being careless. And that's my question. Is there any limit to the number of times that someone can report, these things?
So the quick answer is yes, from the federal perspective, but Maryland has intentionally chosen to have a broad and comprehensive program. And the reason for this, from the conversations that we had beginning in the legislature last year, was to make sure that we could reimburse people because it was through no fault of their own. Now, one of the mechanisms we do is when an individual, like say, for example, you reported to us today that you had your benefits stolen, we would actually verify on the back end whether or not we saw that. And how we know that is because we can actually look at where the charges were made. They could be made in New York or Hollywood or California or in Arkansas when you were literally right here yesterday. So what we're trying to do is make it easier on the customer to not have to prove and have to go through yet another story when we can actually see where those benefits were charged. So we are trying to be as equally sophisticated as quickly as we can, and to say, if it was stolen, we will reimburse you, and you will get another card. Now, to the fact of the matter, to the point that you mentioned around 10 or 12 times, that's not what we're finding.
Okay.
We are finding that there are some individuals who've had their benefits stolen 1 to 3 times, but we are tracking very deliberately when a report of a stolen benefit is submitted, we are tracking like what the claims are. Because I could, for example, back to the example of you getting it stolen, if you went to the grocery store yesterday and you shopped in, let's say, downtown Baltimore, and then you went to work and you went in Baltimore County, those are 2 individual transactions. We don't know where your benefits were stolen out of those transactions. So we see that as 2 transactions. We can look at it on the back end from a technological perspective and then say, yes, in fact, your benefits were stolen. So we're trying very hard on our end to make it as seamless for the customer.
Right. And I think we can all agree that certainly if someone's benefits are stolen, they should be replaced. We don't want to see anybody going hungry.
Correct.
I'm not as compassionate as my neighbor over here, but I'm trying my best here. But I also see that $22 million that eventually that $22 million fell into the hands of somebody who was very nefarious, you know,
Correct.
and that's a lot of money.
It is.
And I just want to make sure that we limit that amount that's being stolen, because it should go to the people who need it, not the people who have, who have ill intentions so.
Absolutely understood.
Appreciate it.
Excellent questions. Thank you, Delegate. Other questions from the committee? I have a couple,
Sure.
if I may. Remind us again, Mr. Secretary, how much was spent in FY24 to date and how much is budgeted for FY25?
Sure. So we launched this brand new program mid-March last year. We started with the soft launch, and then we went full scale across the state. And that number is broken down into 2 components. And I'll just repeat it to you because we've done this in phases. The total amount is 22 million and change. It's just over 22 million. That broke down this last year in SNAP benefits for 16,892,000 and in cash benefits just over $5 million. That's the total that we've reimbursed and was through last year.
How much was budgeted?
Yeah, I'll get that for you. Ultimately,
It was like 5 million or something,
a little bit
right?
more than that, actually.
More than
What
that?
we did was
It's like 8 million.
no, exactly. Let me pull that up for you. Hold on a second. I do have that. Only because here we go. The total amount last year was 6.4 million in. Hold on a second. My apologies. Actually, that's an incorrect number. I'll get back to you that number.
Yes, sir. How much is budgeted in FY25 again? I think you said that
Yes,
number.
just over $27 million. It's $27.8 million.
Using
in
the
governor's budget.
information that you've got
Yes,
to date.
yes, it is. Correct.
Remind me, under the current program, the state's general fund reimburses for some categories of the theft, right? Because we go back further.
That's
back,
correct.
And the feds reimburse for other categories right now. But as you mentioned in your testimony, that's subject to renewal of the Farm Bill at the federal level.
Correct. So essentially, if you think about it visually, if we look at the time, the federal government had a much narrower time frame and a very specific amount of times that you could be reimbursed twice. Maryland chose to expand both the time frame and the concept. So we went back to January 1st of 2021 to the pandemic. So we went all the way back then and going forward. So that's different than the federal government. The federal government had to decide post September 30th of 2024 whether or not they would A, continue, and B, for what purpose, and C, for what time frame. What we are trying to do in Maryland is be broader and more comprehensive so that we can reimburse when benefits are stolen.
Great, thank you. And I think this sort of echoes a little bit what Delegate Grice was saying. I don't think any of us want to see,
correct,
including the department, anybody there, any of these individuals go hungry because their benefits were stolen. And so what happens under current law if the money runs out or the federal Farm Bill does not get renewed?
Mm-hmm. So let me walk you through a couple of scenarios. And let's start with the most hopeful one, because I think we need to. The governor has proposed just over $27 million in the budget. If the legislature chooses to approve that dollar amount, and benefit theft remains as it is this year, because we only have 1 year of data, we'll be okay. That's the honest answer. Scenario number 2, the Farm Bill does pass and the governor's proposal to the legislature is approved as is. We will have sufficient funding, both for the combination of federal and state benefits, as I broke down the SNAP and the cash benefits.
And you might revert some.
Absolutely. You're exact. That's honest, because we
Yeah.
would not need all that money. Now, that said, we are using the data that we have available to us because we can't predict the theft. This is where it gets complicated, right? Now, scenario C, probably the most dire situation. Benefit thefts continue to rise. We do not get a farm bill approved by the federal government, and or a farm bill is approved with not a single dollar in there for any replacement of federal benefits, and thefts continue to rise. And potentially the legislature could choose not to fund the governor's proposal, and then we'd have no money to actually reimburse benefits. We would not want that scenario.
Right. That makes sense. Thank you. And then my last question is for the bill sponsor. So you referenced 2 sponsor amendments. In the first one, the technical amendment, does it maintain the program as an entitlement?
Yes, it does.
Great.
Yes,
Thank
it
you.
does. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, panel 1. I'm going to grab the witness list. Hold on. Okay. We will bring up witnesses. We've got quite a few who have signed up to testify. So JD Robinson, Lisa Klingenmeyer, Erica Young, Gregory Davis. How many chairs do we have up there? Can I call one more? 5. Okay. One more, Ashley Black. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Great. You can proceed in whatever order you wish. And you may just identify yourselves, please, for the committee. Thank you.
Ladies first. Ladies first.
Good afternoon. I'm Erica Whitney Young, Baltimore City resident. May I go ahead and finish? And community liaison with New Era Baltimore. I'm here to speak in opposition of House Bill 1434, which would take away the right of Marylanders to receive reimbursement for food and cash benefits when a theft occurs. I applied for benefits while living in a shelter with 2 young children, escaping a violent marriage. With the help of my monthly cash allotment, I was able to put a deposit on an apartment. It helped me pay bills, upkeep my vehicle so I could get to and from work, and purchase necessities such as toiletries and diapers, and cook healthy meals for my family. The Department of Human Services could deny valid claims for reimbursement of stolen benefits if there is no funding budgeted or if available funds are exhausted before the year ends. But I am concerned that many are not aware that they are entitled to be reimbursed when their benefits are stolen. Inside of all Baltimore City Department of Social Services offices, there are monitors that play continuous loops of informational videos. One clip suggested that those who experience benefit theft first inform the police, second, request a new card, and lastly, create a stronger passcode. I witnessed this clip play inside DSS since 2022 until it was taken down a few weeks ago. There are families unjustly suffering at no fault of their own. A lapse in benefits could set off a chain of events that could cause a family to fall behind in their obligations. It may place the family into the same circumstance they are striving to overcome, such as debt, homelessness, and job loss. Please vote against House Bill 1434 and help families thrive.
Hello, my name is Gregory Davis. I'm a resident of Baltimore. I was affected by stolen funds that was in another state, and I'm in Baltimore. It was like 2-3 different states. I do have 2 younger children that I have joint custody of, that I have to also make sure that they eat. When our benefits are stolen, unbeknownst to us, we should be reimbursed because we also can establish emotional stress behind the theft, because we like left at a loss. Like, what do we do now? How we feed our kids? Because a lot of us are on a shoestring budget.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Woolard. I'm an attorney with the Public Justice Center. I lead our Health and Benefits Equity Project. You have our written testimony. We oppose House Bill 1434. As a public interest attorney, one of the greatest joys of my work is being able to tell a community member who comes to me during one of the most difficult seasons of their life that the law is on their side. This committee responded to a national crisis where food and cash assistance benefits are being stolen from individuals living in poverty by passing what is now the strongest reimbursement law in the country. We didn't think we'd be here again less than a year later to defend that new law that responds directly to a crime. We hear the department's concerns about the fiscal climate that our state is in, but we cannot balance the budget by making the right to reimbursement discretionary and subject to an appropriation. We cannot do this when the clear root of the problem is the lack of security protections for EBT cards. Additionally, there have been significant implementation issues with the rollout of the new law. Many benefits recipients, including one of our clients, Vanessa Fleeton, were not fully reimbursed for their stolen benefits as required by the new law. Ms. Fleeton had nearly $2,500 in SNAP benefits stolen from her account and was reimbursed only $46 initially. We've shared links in our written testimony to a Baltimore Banner articles about her story. PJC proposes an amendment in our written testimony, which would strike the bill language in its entirety and replace it with a work group to focus on identifying financially sustainable pathways for funding reimbursement and resolving the systemic implementation issues. We want Maryland to continue to stand as a leader in not only prioritizing the victims of benefits theft, but also in preventing that theft from occurring in the first place. What we don't want is for Maryland to be the first in the nation to take the right to reimbursement away. Thank you so much for your time, and we respectfully urge this committee to give HB 1434 an unfavorable report.
Good afternoon, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is JD Douglas Robinson. I'm the Program Associate for SNAP at Maryland Hunger Solutions. For over 10 years, we've assisted anyone in the state with applying for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, formerly known as food stamps. And in the past year, we've assisted 100 families directly with submitting a claim for stolen benefits and have heard firsthand about how this theft affects their livelihoods and how restoring them in full is absolutely necessary to maintain their health and well-being. Of those 100 families, some 75 to 80 of them reported that these benefits are being used out of state. So not only is this benefit being removed from families that need it, this money is being taken out of Maryland's economy. And the changes that this bill would make to the law that is working extraordinarily well to restore families would be devastating, especially as the EBT theft is still a rampant issue and implementation of security features is not working as well as we would like. The card locking and unlocking that is available to Maryland EBT users is only available to those with access to a smartphone and the knowledge and know-how of how to download and utilize the app. It's called Connect EBT. And for households that do have access to Connect EBT, unfortunately, a recent survey from Propel has shown that over 50% of those users are having difficulty accessing the locking and unlocking feature due to frequent password resets, security question issues, and among other technological glitches. So users are unable to even access the locking and card unlocking feature at all. EMV chip cards, which all of us have, and our credit and debit cards are on the way, but it's not yet the full standard for EBT cards. California has a pilot program that's incoming. Maryland will hopefully follow suit as those cards have much more protection. But however, despite all of these implementation features, theft can still occur. And which is why it's paramount that we maintain the law as is, guaranteeing a full reimbursement to families and households, full stop. Thank you for consideration. Maryland Hunger Solutions urges an unfavorable report on House Bill 1434.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lisa Klingenmeyer. I'm the Executive Director of Maryland Rise, which is an organization that works to promote economic opportunity for all. We're here today in opposition of HB 1434 because it does remove the mandate that stolen benefits must be replaced and instead makes it a discretionary expense based on budgeting. I agree and echo the things that my colleagues have said. I am your classic perfectionist older daughter. And so when I was in driver's ed in high school, I missed one question that kept me from a perfect 100, and I've never forgotten the question. know the answer, which is when is it the most dangerous time to apply brakes to a car? When it's raining. And it's when it first starts raining is the most dangerous time to apply brakes. And I feel like that's what this bill does. We know there's fiscal uncertainties both in this state and in DC, but we're applying the brakes to something that we just created and that's working. And now is not the time to put brakes on this program. It is a time to talk about revenue so that we're not looking to programs like the replacement of stolen benefits and trying to find ways to find budgetary savings in a program like that. We shouldn't take our fiscal uncertainty and place that on the lowest income Marylanders. And this does change the statute. It makes it required to have some sort of appropriation, and there's no minimum appropriation in the language. And so that also sets us up that while we know this current administration has been working as a partner in this work, if a future administration's not, it means they could zero out the program and then we'd have to come back again to change it. We do not believe this program needs to be changed. We think that this bill is much too soon. We are happy to continue working on this effort with the General Assembly, with the administration. We are here at the table. If the worst case scenario happens in DC, we can come back next legislative session and talk about this. But as the fiscal note states, we already have the funding we need for this year. We should not be changing the underlying foundation of this program. And we strongly urge an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for the panel? Thanks for being with us. Thank you so much. Have a great day. All right, we have a few more unfavorable: Kaylee Shumitz, Michelle Medeo, Gloria Brown, Tanya Moore, Kenyuri Slater. Come on up, whoever gets there can start.
Thank you, Chair Barnes, members of the committee. My name is Callie Shumitz. I'm with the Maryland Center on Economic Policy. So we deeply appreciate the work that DHS, Delegate Lewis and this committee did in creating and launching this program last year that has helped thousands of Marylanders avoid financial catastrophes. However, we strongly believe that a program like this must have full funding to be fair and equitable, and are therefore here in respectful opposition to House Bill 1434. Someone who has had their food or cash benefits stolen in May needs them to be promptly restored just as much as someone whose benefits are stolen in August. But passing HB 1434 would potentially set up a situation in which a family who is the victim of benefits theft later in the fiscal year might not be able to have their benefits restored if the appropriated funds run out. Today, the program is working well as an entitlement, and there's nothing wrong with how the program was set up last year. The statute language and structure are equivalent to other state-funded entitlements, such as the SNAP minimum benefit for seniors. We understand the state's fiscal challenges and the fact that there will be hard choices ahead, particularly if we don't raise revenue. However, we believe the focus should be on lowering the cost by preventing thefts from happening in the first place. And that will come through, as prior panelists were discussing, enhanced EBT card security and taking the time to educate EBT card users about the new security features. It's really too soon to assess the impact of the security features that were added in the last few months. And there are more options that other states are adopting that we could explore in Maryland in the future. And I just want to emphasize that this bill is also premature because this program is set up to be fully funded in the next fiscal year. And the DLS analysis stated that there is likely more funding included in the proposed budget than is needed. So we ask for an unfavorable report on House Bill 23.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Michelle Medeo. I'm Director of Economic Justice with the Homeless Persons Representation Project, here testifying in opposition. We have worked over the years with a lot of people who have been harmed by benefit theft. I'm guessing that none of you have received calls from constituents in the last year who have experienced theft, and that's because of the law. We have a strong law, it's working. We heard just moments ago from the secretary, the current figures are that over $22 million has been replaced in stolen benefits to over 33,000 households. That's a lot of calls that you didn't receive in the last year. And again, it's because we have a strong law in place that is working. So when people apply for SNAP, TDAP, TCA, these are all entitlement programs. That means people have a right to receive the benefit if they meet the eligibility criteria. And so if the benefits are deposited on a card that's and through no fault of their own, the benefits are stolen before the person can ever access the card, and it's because the card is highly vulnerable to theft, then Maryland must replace the benefits. Even with sponsor amendments, HB 1434 would take away the entitlement of Marylanders to receive reimbursements, because if funds run out, appropriated funds run out in the middle of the fiscal year, valid claims for reimbursement will get denied. We did ask the department what would happen if appropriated funding ran out in the middle of the fiscal year, and the answer we were given is that those claims would be on hold. Well, holding a claim doesn't let you feed your family. That's why we need to keep Maryland having a statutory entitlement to reimbursement. We'd like to see more efforts focused on securing EBT cards, really addressing the root cause of theft, which will ultimately drive down the cost. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, hello again. Tanea Moore with the Cash Campaign of Maryland. I would like to echo the concerns of my colleagues surrounding the impact of this bill on our clients and families. We simply can't support legislation that may have a negative impact on our families after going through the unfortunate situation of having their benefits stolen. Advocates stand ready to continue these conversations around how to improve security measures to lessen the amount of people having their benefits stolen. Until we get there, we have to make sure that we remain and have policies in place to make sure that when people go through the unfortunate circumstances of having their EBT theft, experiencing EBT theft, then we have policies in place where they will be reimbursed. Cash has been working with DHS since the past year on various topics, and we are committed to continuing our work in partnership with them. Thank you to Delegate Lewis for continuously having us a part of these conversations and listening to us. We really appreciate the collaboration that we've seen from DHS and Delegate Lewis. We know what partnership looks like, and I'm sure that we can continue to come together to find a solution that protects our state and our low to middle income families living in it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gloria Brown, and I work for Maryland Legal Aid, and thank you, Chairman and delegates, for allowing us to be here. We oppose House Bill 1434 for primarily the very reasons everyone else has stated. There is not much left to say, except that what it does is it would make it not potentially, it would give discretion to contingent on budgeting concerns to cut off the benefits. And this is where we were in 2022, where Maryland Legal Aid helps hundreds of people in TCA and SNAP appeals. And we were going before the Office of the Administrative Hearings, and everyone was saying, or the judges were saying, we have so much sympathy. However, the state has yanked the funding. There is no reimbursement. And that is the fear, that the entitlement will be taken again. And so when 2023 came around and the law changed, it was just really, really, truly wonderful. And again, the thing is that we're using an EBT card that belongs in the 1990s. We have language regarding texting, fraud alerts. That has not yet been implemented. The law is new. There are texts. People are texted when when it's used, but it is not a fraud alert. So for example, if I have a client, and I did, who used her EBT card at the mom and pop store, and then she went to use it a few hours later somewhere else, and it had been used in Florida, there's no reason for that.
Thank you.
And so that is why we're asking that you not approve House Bill 1434. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony. Any questions for the panel? Okay, that concludes the bill hearing. Thank you so much. Committee, we do have, I believe that completes our bill hearings, but we have one quick matter to vote on. Do we need to pause? Can we roll into? Okay. We have the amendments coming around. Just hold on one sec. You all could quietly exit. We're still in an open session. Thank you. So I think the bill we heard this morning had a technical error wherein an immigrant could have resided essentially in the state for less than 12 months, which was never the intent. So we've talked to sort of some of the advocates and others. We're just going to make it an amendment from 3 to 2 years, which keeps it really simple. It means that you'll have at least a minimum of 12 months in the state before you could have in-state residency, which mirrors sort of documented immigrants or citizens. So I will bring this to the floor as a floor amendment from the committee tomorrow. I will move the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Any opposed, raise your hand. The amendment passes. Thanks. We're adjourned.